You also do a lot of educational stuff and getting reptiles in the hands of people for oftentimes the first time. So what's that experience like?
It's such a wonderful experience. I mean, I've been so fortunate that I live in a very small community. I mean, my town is 1,200 people. The county I live in, there's probably less than 40,000 people. It's just very small, tight knit, and everybody knows I have reptiles. Everybody does. I walk into the grocery store, they say, "Hey, you're the snake guy, aren't you?" Um, or the guitar guy, whatever. But
Right,
anyways,
right.
I get the snake guy. And what had happened out here, I got really fortunate with. We have two children's fairs out here. We have two county fairs. They're very close, so they're one right after the other. Well, they had gotten a hold of me because they had a company that used to come out and bring reptiles out and do a booth for them. They started charging them way too much money. They couldn't afford it. They called me up, and I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I haven't charged them a dime. But I go out there, they call me up, they give me a booth. If it's cool, they give me a room where there's heat in there, and I can give the heat pads for the animals. And I think that the very first year we did it, they did the flyers and they said, "Oh, we're going to have reptiles," and it was actually a beautiful day. It's held at a high school. So the high school's got a brand new football field out there, and I take Emma, who's my 14-foot girl, out on the football field, and we just stretch her out. And all of the kids, they just come around, and you got the parents who are scared to death. They're not coming within 10 feet, but their kid is sitting or laying right next to Emma and just petting her, and she's so benign and puppy dog tame, she doesn't care at all. But the more that I do this, the more the questions get asked, and it's not so much a USARK thing per se, but it's more like, what would be a good first reptile for me? Hey, well, do your research. That's the best reptile you could ever do, is your research first, and then take a look at this website, take a look at this website, and then make an informed decision. And whatever that decision is, I can give them my contact information and they can give me a call and I can help them out along the way. But too many times, I think kids, adults alike, we get blindsided by the magic or the majesty, the
Yeah,
beauty of these animals, and we're buying them before we even have a home for them.
right.
And we've done no research. Oh, they're just cool looking out there on the football field, and and I think that's one of the greatest things that I get to do, is just hand out that little piece of information of, do your research. The other thing is that some of these kids, that introduction to either Emma or one of my smaller animals, that is a positive reinforcement. So they're not going to grow up. I want to tell this story, but they're not going to grow up with this horror story that's going to bring this fear of reptiles for the rest of their lives.
Right.
The county fairs that I do, they spawned, right? Like, I get parents that come up to me or they'll message me on social media, and they say, "Hey, we saw you at the kids fair and we're doing a Girl Scout event. Can you bring your reptiles to a Girl Scout event?" And absolutely I can. So the woman who had contacted me, her daughter was actually very, very intrigued with one of my retics, Maggie. She's a platinum tiger, super sweet girl, but she was absolutely just enamored with her, right? And so they called me up. They said, "Can you do this?" We got set up, and I found out that the mother was deathly afraid of snakes.
Mm.
She did this for her daughter, right? But she was deathly afraid of snakes. And I'm going to ask the question, if you tell me you're afraid of reptiles, I'm going to ask you why. Not because I want you to touch my reptile or I want you to go out and buy one, but I want to find out where that stems from. Is it just because you don't like spaghetti because you've never tried it? Or is it because something actually happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I asked her, she goes, "I'm deathly afraid of snakes." And I asked her, I said, "What happened?" And she said, "When I was in kindergarten, the teacher had a ball python in the classroom. And the teacher made us all sit in a circle and put that ball python on top of us and said we could not move until it crawled on us." And it's, to me, okay, here's a legitimate fear. But I'll tell you, Jeremy, as she's telling me this story, I have a Burmese python around my neck, right? And she's reaching over and she's touching the Burmese python. And I don't know if I should say anything. I don't know if I should laugh. I don't know if I just let
Right,
her
right,
do
right,
her
right.
thing, right? She's telling her story. She's touching the Burmese python. And she gets done telling me her story. And I said, do you realize that the whole time that you were telling me that story, you were touching Gigi, my Burmese python? And she goes, yeah. So I took Gigi off and I just extended her out. She put her hands out and she held her. First time she held a snake since that incident. So
That's
the very next year we go back and do the same event. I brought 3, 4 of my retics. The mother actually took off with one of my retics, and I did not see her for the rest of the evening. I
that's
can't tell
awesome.
you that joy right there. I can't tell you how much joy that brings me. That somebody that obviously had this absolute fear of reptiles had walked through that and got a completely different perspective. And
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's got anything to do with me. It's just me being in the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
And I get a lot of those experiences because of what I do. I continually get asked to do new things, and it exposes myself and my reptiles to the public, and it really does promote that real positive energy and that light that they're not these mean, terrible, feared animals that a lot of people make them out to be.
100%. And I absolutely love that story. I recall, actually it wasn't that long ago. I had a friend reach out to me and was like, "Hey, do you know the name such and such?" And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds really vaguely familiar." And it happened to be, a, a, a guy, now a guy who was a kid when I brought reptiles to their birthday party. And they had gotten to talking and whatever. And my friend has a tattoo of a snake on them. And this person mentioned it and was like, "Oh man, I remember for this birthday, I had this guy come and bring snakes to my birthday." When they asked him where he was originally from, I was like, "Oh, that must have been my friend Jeremy." And he was like, "Yeah, that was the guy." And I'm like, "Man, that is really cool to be able to have that kind of an impact, whether it's getting somebody figuring out the root cause of somebody's fear and getting them over it, or just having having such a positive interaction with reptiles that was so impactful that it's something you remember for the rest of your life. It's not necessarily about taking those moments to create new reptile keepers so much as just getting people to understand, like, hey, these creatures are really cool. They're a part of our world. We share this space with them. And it's important to don't kill every snake you see on the side of the road, but just have an overall respect for these wonderful creatures. You don't have to own one. That's not the purpose,
Right.
of us bringing the animals out, but it's like just to have those kind of impacts to the everyday person who doesn't do what we do, who wouldn't necessarily have that thought process or would uh, have that lifelong fear, without the chance of actually figuring it out and working it out and then being like, "Oh, you know what? I used to be afraid of snakes, but then I met this guy and we had this whole conversation and I worked it out and figured it out. And now snakes are pretty cool. I might not touch every snake I see, but snakes are cool. I have a better appreciation for snakes. That for me personally, and I feel the same for you, like that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
When it comes to education, absolutely. The particular events that I get to do, those county fairs,
Mhm.
they put me out there and they tell me. I mean, now, like, if I think it's every May or April, I think it's April that we do that, the Calaveras one. They'll tell me your booth is the most attended booth. Everybody is excited and talks about the reptiles. That's what they come here for. And I love it. And I don't just limit myself. Again, I got a lot of love, and I'm super thankful for my wife because she makes the time and she goes there too and she helps me out. So we have a whole booth, a whole table set up, and she'll pretty much man that table where people are coming in and they want to take pictures and they got all sorts of questions and stuff. And I'll walk around the whole area with one of the bigger snakes and just get everybody involved, whether it's a child or it's an elderly woman or man. I have had women and men in their 70s stop me at these events and say, "Hey, can we hold Emma and get a picture with her?" And
That's
I'm like, "Absolutely."
I love all of that 100% because it really is just that's how we create just reptile lovers we have the potential impact to create future reptile keepers. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not necessarily about getting people more into the industry so much as just getting people to enjoy reptiles and understand these incredibly misunderstood animals for sure. But I want to make sure, because we're out here on the USARK channel, so I have to make sure I ask you this question as we round things out, man. And you do a lot for USARK, and we really appreciate it. So I got to ask you, Gary, what does USARK mean to you?
As you know, it's a this is the question I'm usually asking people, and USARK means everything to me. I have been a USARK member. I've got to say for at least 5 years now, at least 5 years. Um, since the time that I think Vanessa has come on board, I think that it's changed a lot as far as accessibility, as far as, being, if you have a question, you can ask her, she responds immediately. And, so for me, it's like, I know what they do. I know what Phil does for USARK. I know what Vanessa does for USARK. I know what you do for USARK. And it's more than just we fight for our rights to keep our animals, right? There's this whole responsible reptile keeping side of it. I get into the trenches with USARK. I do a lot of these. Vanessa has sent me a table basically. So
Yeah.
I've got everything to set up at any show out here on the West Coast. And I try to cover everywhere from Bakersfield, California, as far north as Washington State. And, I don't do auctions. I don't do anything. I've told Vanessa, I don't want nothing to do with the money side of it. All I want to do is I want to be at that table and I want to say, hey, you got any reptiles? Oh, strike that conversation up. And have you ever heard of USARK?
Yep.
Oh, and then get that going. And I'll tell you, this last show that I did, it was in the Bay Area here. I'm drawing a blank on where I was. I've done a lot of shows out here. So I have a lot of pamphlets that I've handed to a lot of people, right? Yeah. I had two separate instances where somebody came up to me at the show I just did, and they said, hey, you gave me a pamphlet at this other show. I read it and I'm ready to sign up.
That's awesome.
And it's like, that is what this is all about. USARK, to me, it's like, I keep big constrictors. I keep large animals. And here in California, we're very reptile law lenient. You know what I mean? So I want to keep it that way. And am I being biased to the West Coast? It's really because that's really the outreach that I'm limited to. I'm able to get in my car and drive to Bakersfield, and I've driven up to Washington, and I love going to reptile shows, and at the same time share about USARK and potentially, help people, if not help them to understand what USARK does, and maybe potentially become a member. I like to tell people, you know what, it's 4 trips to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And you get, and it's like you're not just helping yourself, but you're helping me, and you're helping everybody in the building. That's why it's important, that we get USARK's name out there. We get more members. We become stronger. The more members we are, the stronger we are.
100%, man.
And that's for me, what USARK means to me is that it's just that next step in me being able to keep my reptiles the way that I want to keep them. USARK is a big part of that.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. And Gary, I want to just thank you for coming and hanging and spending some time with me and getting to chat. If people want to check you out and follow you, what you've got going on, some of the educational stuff you've got, and some of your awesome animals, where can they find you?
So social media wise, it's Constricted and Addicted that's the main page. On Instagram, I'm on Facebook. That's Gary Tarplee. And I do post a lot of my stuff on there, but it's more, I'm a musician as well, so that's a lot of where my musician stuff is going to go. And I also put that stuff on my Constricted and Addicted too. I've been playing. Oh, by the way, if you've ever heard the song USARK Rocks,
yep, been in some of our reels. Yeah,
I actually wrote that song and I'm singing that song. So I'm a musician, and that's another thing. I went in my studio and I sent her and Phil the demo. And there it was. USARK Rocks, looking out for you. Yeah, that was That was fun. But I love USARK. I love what Phil does for us. I love what USARK does for us as a whole. And as long as I have reptiles, I'm going to continue to support and fight with USARK.
Absolutely, man. We definitely appreciate the support and all of the work that you do for USARK, man. Again, thank you so much for coming and hanging and spending some time and chatting with me, man. Definitely appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you do for USARK as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. I'll talk
And
to you
if
soon.
you're going to be in Tinley in March, we'll be back out there.
Heck yeah, I plan on being there. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again, man.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks again, Gary.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.